Matthew, about 5 through 7. It's called the Sermon on the Mount. Kind of an interesting thing. And Luke is called the Sermon on the Plain. Sermon on the Mount is a time where Jesus gathers with his 12 disciples, but also with a group of disciples, and begins to line out a Christian manifesto. He begins by giving a synopsis by something we call the happy attitudes. And so as you look at these attitudes of life, the Beatitudes, they begin to lay out what the kingdom of God looks like and what those attributes of the kingdom of God are. He then moves beyond that and begins to talk about all kinds of issues. For instance, we talked about the fact that he called us to be light and salt in the world. And now today, he picks up an issue that on the surface may not be that big of a deal for us, but deep under the surface is a huge deal. You know, the scripture says that we have an illness. That illness is called sinfulness. A propensity that we have to walk away from God, to follow our own ways, and at times to go down the darker path of life that can be very bad and or very evil. So today we want to begin by talking about R&R. You guys know what that is, right? What is R&R? No, it's resentment and revenge. Resentment and revenge. So Jesus picks up this theme that he's been talking about. You've heard it said, but I say to you. So you've heard it said, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. How many of you are in for that one? Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. There's only one way to get back at folks. You know, they're going to run over top of you unless you fire back. Always fire back. Well, that's not an attribute that you find in the kingdom of God. You know, as we heard in the children's sermon, that's not how we deal with each other in the kingdom of God. Rather, he says, don't hang on to that sense of resentment, that sense of revenge. That really is a rightful thing for you. Most of the time when we feel that sense of resentment, it is a justified sense of resentment. People have wronged us. People taking advantage of us. It is an emotion that comes up naturally and normally, and we feel as though that we have a right to it. Revenge, they deserve this. Okay? I've held back on this, but the truth is, it's about to come. Oddly enough, many, many years ago, I remember talking to a gentleman in the parking lot of the church that I served, and I said, by the way, I got your letter. Now, his letter had called me racist, called the church racist, and that was the nicest part of that letter. And I said, so I got your letter. He said, oh yeah, the letter. And I said, mm-hmm. I said, you know, I don't know that you've ever had a pastor kick your butt, but it's about to happen. Let me finish that, because I don't want to leave it at that. I said, what makes you think that it would be a loving act on our part to let you talk to us that way and accuse us of these heinous things that you've accused us of? It would not be loving on my part to let you get away with that at all. So I do love you. I love you enough to tell you what I think about all of that, and to tell you that you are not going to be allowed to act that way within our church. So something's going to change, and it's going to have to be you. So it's oddly enough, in the kingdom of God, a place where we're not having this right to resentment and revenge, but we do face truth with one another, talk truth with one another. You know, you heard probably on Saturday Night Live many years ago, Christopher Walken used a phrase that I've always loved. He said, you know, I got a fever. And the only prescription is more cowbell. More cowbell, as they're singing the song. You know, the truth is, we do have a fever. We do have an illness in life. But the only prescription for that is not cowbell. It is kindness. Kindness, for lack of a better way to define that, are the ability for us to show loving acts towards people that otherwise have really no right to those loving acts on our part at all. Jesus came years and years after countless centuries of rabbinical study. The Torah, the first 5 books of the Bible, were studied extensively by all those that came before Jesus, and they fell off into 2 schools, Hillel and Shammai. Hillel was a very liberal school. That's the school that said, you can divorce your wife for anything as much as too much salt on the stew. Yeah, you don't want her anymore, get rid of her. Shammai, I see a lot of husbands going, really? Shammai was much more conservative in the understanding, and there was a dominant rabbinical saying of the day, countless centuries before Jesus: do not treat people the way that you do not want to be treated. It was a negative phrase. Do not treat people the way that you do not want to be treated. Jesus, of course, picks that up and phrases it differently, doesn't he? Treat people the way that you would like to be treated. So in this passage, he begins to lay out these issues of life, that rather than giving an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth, hanging on to resentment and revenge, that if somebody asks you to go a mile, you should go a mile. If somebody asks you for your coat, you should give your cloak also. If somebody smacks you in the face, in other words, disrespects you, is abusive to you, give to them the other cheek. Be kind and patient. If someone asks you that you can assist them and lend to them, you should lend to them. If someone who hates you is present in your life, you should not return hate for hate, evil for evil, but rather you should show loving kindness to them. Is that something that you all think you can do? Is it something that we together are doing on a daily basis? On the surface, we all understand it. It always seems easy. Well, of course, I give to people who ask. I try to be kind to people. I try to be loving to people. I try to go the extra mile with people. I'll help anybody that I can help. I try to love people. What about when it gets tough in life? What about when you're talking about justice issues? People have wronged you. People are suing you unjustly, seeking to destroy your life for no good reason other than the fact that that's what they're doing. People are perhaps somewhat mentally off in terms of the pursuing of you and dragging you through all kinds of things in life. What happens in our lives when people are coming after us and negatively impacting our lives unjustly? What happens to the folks of life that are being abused or have gone through tragic abuse in life? How do you, when you've gone through these cycles of life, hear these words differently? And what are you to make of these words if you were abused as a child? How are you to hear these words that you are to love, that you are to forgive, that you are to not return evil for evil? What happens to justice when it comes to these kinds of things? You may remember years ago a circumstance that was so tragic in the Indianapolis area. There was a pastor and his wife that were starting a church, and he was a very successful pastor. His name was Davy Blackburn. His wife Amanda ended up having her life taken by two gentlemen that broke into the home. It was the third act of vandalism on that day on their part. They broke into their home, and Amanda was expecting a child. And two of them took off to go be able to get money out of one of her accounts, but one stayed behind. And as he was staying behind, she lunged towards him, and he shot her. And as she fell to the floor, he shot her again. And then in his recounting of the crime, just stood and watched her, looking at her as life bled out of her body. What do you do? What do you do with that kind of evil in the world? What do you do with that kind of abuse when it comes close to you, it comes to your family? And what do you do with these people who have done this to you or to your family? How do we as a society deal with it? We knock up against tough issues. Should there be a death penalty? Should there be something where the penalty for crime is so tough that perhaps people will think twice before they, for instance, kill somebody, because it could be an automatic taking of their own lives? Does that solve the problem? I'd be happy to know that preachers don't try to solve the political problems of life, but we do look at social and cultural problems. How is it that we handle these kinds of things? And then we hear these words of Jesus. Abuse as a child, or having someone killed my wife. How do I handle this? I was so struck because the statement that Davy Blackburn made early on in 2015 was just incredible. He said, though everything inside of me wants to hate, be angry, and slip into despair, I choose the route of forgiveness, grace, and hope. Can you get in his shoes for a second? Love of his life. The mother of his child. Mother of his child would be gone. And he's facing that sense, that feeling of resentment, that feeling of bitterness, feeling of revenge, feeling of payback, feeling of justice in life. But even early on, he says, though everything inside of me wants to do that, slip away into despair. It's such a powerful phrase. I choose the route of forgiveness, grace, and hope. If there is one thing I've learned from Amanda, his wife, in the 10 years we were together, it is this. Choosing to let my emotions drive my decisions is a recipe for hopelessness and a fearful life. Today I am deciding to love, not hate. Wow. Today I'm choosing to love, not hate. I don't know that I could do that. I don't know that I could have done that if I were him. I don't know how he's doing that or how he's been with that since then. Words sometimes are easy for us. That first decision to take a step that direction is sometimes the most difficult. In other ways, it's the easiest one. Steps that follow that fold out of them. How about you? Could you do that? Would you seek that path? How do you confront the demons that come towards you in the midst of those tragic aspects of life? There's an awful lot in life that's unfair, a lot that's evil, and a lot that comes from sick, dark, challenged, and evil people that come to us, the people of God. These words of Jesus become strong, don't they? When you put them up against the real challenges of life. And all of us have faced that at some point, either personally, in our families, in our neighborhoods, in our schools, in our places of work, or other people that are part of our lives. And all of us have a choice that we make sometimes. Are we able to follow these words of Jesus rather than following an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth? And what is this really about that Jesus is talking about? Ultimately, I think that Christ is talking about the circumstance of the world. That in the Garden of Eden we fell. And when we fell, with that fall, there came a consequence to our lives together. All of a sudden there is this sickness, this R&R, this sinfulness. It also negatively impacted all things, including the planet. All of creation, all that God is Lord over, has taken a hit as a result of that early fall. So as Jesus now gives us these words, Christ is calling us to a different place. To be able to step back in to the garden at some level. Later in this passage it says, be perfect as your Father is perfect. Be perfect. The word in Greek is an interesting choice of words here. Teleoi. Teleoi. Teleoi comes from a Greek word teleos, which means design. Teleology is a word that we use for the argument or the logic of design, that all things are designed by God. The word perfect in English doesn't really convey what Greek is saying. What is the Greek saying? It says, be perfect like God. In essence, it's saying, be like God. How is it that God deals with us? All of us, in our choice to be other than godly at times. With graciousness and love and kindness and presence in the midst of all of that. Well, then what becomes of justice? Well, justice is an issue. Justice is something we must trust God for. The Bible does talk about justice. It talks about the fact that justice is something that's brought about in life by God. So in the midst of this it says, you should be God in the world. You should be like God in the world. You should be people who are kind. So, I have a video clip today that I want to use going into this next part of the sermon. And so, Dave, is that something you can make happen? Oh, she's got it.
same.
I feel the same. In different words.
Thanks, Mother.
Kindness. The world will not change. This you can count on. The challenges have always been there. The challenges will always be there at global levels and the levels of our own homes and our jobs and the people that confront us. The people who are not godly in the midst of the godly people that are not saved by the word Christian. I love that sense of kindness. The only thing that changes us, a decision on our part to decide that we will be like God. That we will choose a path of love, a path of kindness, and that ultimately our own healing and the healings of anyone else and the sense of justice in this world will only come about by a decision on our parts individually together to be people who are kind. Blaise Pascal once said, kind words do not cost much, yet they accomplish much. Dalai Lama said, my religion is very simple. My religion is kindness. Ralph Waldo Emerson said, you can never do a kindness too soon. You will never know how soon it will be too late. And I love Henry James, who says 3 things in human life are important. The first is to be kind. The second is to be kind. And the third is to be kind. Wow. Maybe it's that simple, that we are people who turn the cheek, offer the cloak, walk the mile, lend from our resources. I've loved those who gave us. Let's pray together. You've been so gracious and kind to each of us. Savior, we ask that you would pour that same kindness through our lives and to those who do not deserve it, but are so in need. In Christ's name. Amen.